June 1944, the Humber factory, Brighton-on-Dunsmore, Coventry, England. A heavy, angular armoured car rolls off the production line for the first time. 4 wheels, a low octagonal turret, a quick-firing 40mm gun pointing forward, steel welded tight across every joint. It weighs 11.7 tons, carries a crew of 4, and can reach 66 km per hour on an open road. By any technical measure, it is a capable machine. Nobody wants it. The British Army looked at it, tested it at the ranges of Lulworth and said no. The generals had already written it off before the first prototype was finished. The fighting compartment was cramped. The armour was thinner than the vehicle it was meant to replace. The whole machine was heavier and slower than the Daimler armoured car it was supposed to make obsolete. An order for 2,600 had been placed. It would now produce 220. The Coventry Armoured Car was the most expensive rejection in British armoured vehicle procurement history. It was designed to standardize British reconnaissance forces across the globe. It ended up equipping a French cavalry regiment in a jungle 5,000 kilometers from the factory that built it, and in those jungles, it would face a war entirely unlike the one its designers had imagined. Its designation was AFVW-19. Its name was the Coventry Armoured Car, and it was the most unwanted British vehicle to ever fire a shot in anger. To understand why the Coventry existed, you need to understand the problem Britain faced in 1942. By that year, the British Army operated 2 parallel lines of armoured cars in active service. The Daimler Armoured Car, a compact and innovative 4x4 with a fluid flywheel gearbox and independent suspension, was fast and reliable but produced in relatively small numbers and at considerable cost. The Humber Armoured Car, a heavier 4x4 built on a truck chassis, was easier to manufacture but less agile in the field. Both vehicles carried essentially the same armament. Both drew on different factories and different supply chains. Maintenance units in the field had to stock parts for 2 separate systems. The War Office wanted one vehicle, built in one place, at industrial scale. The solution was the Coventry. 2 Coventry firms, the Daimler Company and the Roots Group, were tasked with combining their best features into a single design. Daimler contributed suspension geometry and transmission expertise. Roots, through its Humber subsidiary, handled the overall design and production. A third Roots subsidiary, Commer, supplied axles and the transfer case. The result was ordered in 1943, with 2,600 vehicles planned, 1,700 in the Mark I variant, armed with a quick-firing 40mm 2-pounder gun, and 900 in the Mark II, intended to mount a 75mm gun. The vehicle that emerged was a solid but deeply compromised machine. Its Hercules 6-cylinder petrol engine produced 175 horsepower, giving a top road speed of 66 km per hour and an operational range of 400 km. The turret carried the quick-firing 2-pounder and a coaxial 7.92mm Beezer machine gun. Armour thickness ran from 8 to 14mm, with a welded hull and a cast gun mantlet. Duplicate rear driving controls allowed the crew to reverse rapidly without the driver turning around, a useful feature for armoured car operations. On paper, it looked adequate. In practice, it failed at every comparison that mattered. The Daimler it was designed to replace weighed 7.6 tons against the Coventry's 11.7. The Daimler carried 16mm of maximum armour against the Coventry's 14. The Daimler could reach 80 km per hour against the Coventry's 66. At nearly every measurement, the vehicle being replaced was superior to the vehicle replacing it. Army trials returned a verdict of low standard of fighting efficiency. The Mark II with its 75mm gun was cancelled after 2 prototypes. The Mark I order was cut from 1,700 to 300, then reduced again as the war in Europe drew toward its conclusion. Final production reached somewhere between 220 and 283 vehicles. The exact number is disputed across sources. What is not disputed is the outcome. The British Army, which had commissioned 2,600, accepted none into operational service. The Coventry entered service with a nation that had never ordered it, in a war that had not yet started, in a theatre the designers had never considered. Before we follow the Coventry to where it actually fought, if you are enjoying this deep dive into British military engineering, hit subscribe. It takes a second, costs nothing, and helps the channel grow. In 1946, France was rebuilding its military from almost nothing. 4 years of German occupation had destroyed domestic armoured vehicle production. The factories were damaged, the designs were dated, and an entire generation of cavalry doctrine had been erased. And yet, within months of liberation, France was already committing forces to Indochina, its vast colonial territory in Southeast Asia, where nationalist movements were hardening into armed resistance under the Viet Minh. The French military needed armoured vehicles immediately. It bought what was available: American M5 Stuart light tanks, M8 Greyhound armoured cars, and, from British surplus stocks, 40 Coventry armoured cars purchased in 1946 at prices that reflected their status as unwanted inventory. On February 2, 1946, the troopship Pasteur docked at Saigon. Aboard was the 5th Regiment of Cuirassiers, commanded by Colonel Buren, a reconstituted cavalry regiment rebuilt on French soil the previous year. It arrived with 3 combat squadrons under Captains Keller, Bellier, and Leonardi. Each squadron would eventually field 2 heavy platoons of Coventry Armoured Cars and 2 light platoons of Humber Scout cars. At full establishment, 52 Coventrys and 41 Humbers. By 1948, the regiment had expanded to 6 combat squadrons, organised in 2 groups, based at Tudalmot, with detachments across Cochinchina and Annam. The terrain they were entering bore no resemblance to the European plains the Coventry was designed to cross. Indochina was jungle, mountain, paddy field and river delta. Roads were narrow, surfaces were poor. The Viet Minh did not fight from armoured vehicles. They fought from tree lines, bunker complexes and prepared ambush positions along exactly the routes the Coventrys were required to patrol. The first tactical problem was immediate. The Coventry's quick-firing 2-pounder had no standard high-explosive shell in mass supply for colonial operations. It was an anti-tank gun in a theatre where the enemy had no tanks. The coaxial Besser machine gun became the primary weapon in every engagement. The 40mm barrel pointed at tree lines it could strip of infantry, but could not crack open a fortified position. The second problem was mines. The Viet Minh laid them on every patrol route with increasing regularity. The Coventry's floor armour was 8mm thick. French crews responded by welding additional steel plate to the underside of their vehicles, in some cases building up to 48mm of improvised mine protection across the hull floor. The added weight further degraded performance on soft ground. Vehicles sank deeper into the laterite. Drivers worked harder. Maintenance burdens increased. The crews went out anyway. By 1948, the regiment held open routes that nothing else could. The Phan Thiet to Ban Mi Thuot Highland Road, 300 kilometres of switchbacks through contested mountain terrain, was kept open almost entirely by Coventry patrols. Squadrons rotated between Dao Tieng, Dian, Ban Mi Thuot, Phan Thiet, and Chon Than, in patterns dictated by the intensity of Viet Minh activity in each zone. Then there was Siem Reap. When Khmer Issarak insurgents attacked the Cambodian town near the temples of Angkor, the 3rd Squadron was dispatched from Saigon. Captain Leonardi split his force. Lieutenant Vincent led the Coventry column along the northern route, the only road that could support the vehicle's loaded weight. Leonardi took lighter elements by the faster southern track. The Coventry column covered approximately 500 kilometres from Saigon. The town was relieved. In those same months, a young platoon commander named Lieutenant Delaunay was patrolling the roads of Cochinchina in a Coventry when a grenade was thrown into his vehicle. Delaunay caught it. He threw it back out before it detonated. The action cost him part of his right hand. It saved his crew. Every man in the vehicle walked away. Delaunay survived Indochina. He survived the Algerian War. He rose through the ranks of the French army until he stood at its top, serving as Chief of Staff of the French army before resigning his post in 1981. His career began, and nearly ended, in an armoured car that Britain had already decided it did not want. Against its contemporaries, the Coventry occupied an awkward position. The Daimler armoured car it was meant to replace was 4 tons lighter, 2 kilometres per hour faster, and carried more armour at maximum thickness. Its only measurable advantage was range, 400 kilometres against the Daimler's 320, which mattered on open plains and mattered considerably less in jungle operations measured in tens of kilometres. The AEC armoured car, built at nearly identical weight, carried up to 57mm of armour and was progressively upgraded to carry a 6-pounder and then a 75mm gun. The Coventry's 14mm at 11.7 tons was indefensible by any comparison. In French service, the Coventry was replaced progressively from 1951 onward by American M8 Greyhounds and M5 Stuarts. Some vehicles were transferred to the fledgling Vietnamese National Army during 1951 and 1952, as French units re-equipped. Individual vehicles were named Epervier, Saigon, Near Vinden, Pegasus. They carried those names through hundreds of convoy runs along roads that history does not record. By 1952, the 5th Cuirassier had retired the type entirely. The Viet Minh campaign continued. The Coventry did not. One confirmed example survives at the Tank Museum in Bovington, Dorset. It is in running condition. It represents the 220 to 283 that were built, the 2,317 that were never built, and the 2,600 that were ordered by an army that ultimately wanted none of them. June 1944, the Humber factory, Ryton-on-Dunsmore, Coventry. The vehicle that rolled off that line was, by the assessment of the army that commissioned it, Not good enough. The armour was too thin, the fighting compartment was too cramped, the weight was too high for the protection it offered. The gun it carried had no high explosive shell for the wars that actually waited for it. Every criticism was accurate, and yet the Coventry served, in convoy columns across Cochinchina, on mountain roads above Ban Methuot, along the approaches to Angkor, in the hands of men who had no better option, and made it work anyway. A young lieutenant lost part of his hand in one and still went on to command an entire army. The Coventry Armoured Car was not elegant. It was not what Britain asked for. It was not what France would have chosen. It was what France could get, and in the jungles of Indochina, in the hands of men who deserved better equipment and used what they had, that was enough.